Welcome to my game theory video. In this video, I applied a model of informational herding to academics from the EU choosing whether to stay in the UK or leave it after Brexit, and provide a solution to avoid it. Why is herding relevant to this context? It applies to one-shot games, and since the decision to buy a house or marry someone from the UK is mostly a one-time decision, it fits. Hence, it provides a framework to predict decision-making. Thus, we move on to the setup of the model. We have a positive, non-zero amount of agents ordered exogenously, two possible distributions, and two actions, each of which yield a higher payoff than the other one for one of the distributions. As such, the agents want to try to guess which distribution is the actual one to inform their actions. To do so, they have access to public information, namely the past decisions of the agents preceding them, and a private signal, which they receive regarding the distribution, which has a probability greater than 50% of being correct. Applying the model to EU academics is relatively straightforward. In our case, the two possible distributions are good future funding for research and bad prospects. They also have, of course, two possible actions, staying or leaving. Finally, they receive conditionally independent signals from their university, which they may interpret as good or bad. For good prospects, they would stay, and vice versa. Note that although the university does not necessarily send specific signals to individuals, everyone perceives things differently, hence justifying conditionally independent signals. Having described the initial setup, we can thus now infer the actions of individual academics. The first academic will decide only based on a signal, as there are no past actions. If he gets a good signal, he will stay. Thus, we move on to the second academic. If his signal matches the action, and hence signal of the first academic, he will act the same. But if his signal is different, faced with conflicting signals, he will choose an action at random. For the third academic, his decision is not at all based on the signals if the previous academic's actions are in agreement. This is because in this case, and for all future academics, the public information outweighs the private signal. As we will discuss, this can be potentially problematic. On the other hand, if the previous actions disagree, he will just follow his signal. The agent's decisions are summarized here. If the latter case just described occurs, but the initial agent signal is incorrect, we experience what is termed a herd externality. Actions are followed even though they do not correspond to the underlying distribution, and this continues indefinitely. Also an action called cascading. Hence we could experience all the academics leaving or staying without regard for their signal. My solution is simple. Assuming the academic population's preferences are normally distributed, which they should be with a large enough sample, a survey should be administered to find preferences on staying or leaving. Having done so, the next step would be to nudge academics at either extreme into following their signal. Examples of stay nudges include, for example, reimbursement of mortgage interest or providing tuition discounts for children of staff. Examples of leave nudges would include, for example, lucrative offers abroad or double offers for couples. If this is done correctly, academics less adamant about their choice will be free to decide, free of the possibility of informational herding. The university will only have to alter the agent signals, which in the original model are exogenous, but in reality, of course, are endogenous and modifiable. There are, of course, possible limitations to this course of action. The most salient one is that the population may not be normally distributed, and may have overwhelming preferences for leaving or staying. Moreover, there is no guarantee academics will reveal their true preferences, and thus there is an issue of moral hazard. Moreover, the original signal of academics may be distorted by the survey itself. Nevertheless, all in all, herding can't provide a suitable initial framework to work with, and it does appear that nudges can be a potential solution. On the whole, successful implementation is certainly possible. On that note, I would like to thank you for listening to my presentation and conclude it. Bye!